Welcome back to Data Discovery. You are watching Module 3, Exploratory Research. In this module, you will learn to find and use the Library Research Guide on data and statistics, and understand how to start finding major data producers. As in Module 2, let us use an example to illustrate a process to explore major data sources in this early stage of research. Our research question is, what is the impact of the housing costs on racialized populations in urban areas in Ontario? With a couple of ideas for quantifiable data. During the exploratory stage, we want to identify the broad topic first so as not to rule out potential data producers too early. In this example, we can broaden to the topic of housing in Ontario to investigate the resources that are available. A good way to start understanding what information is available for a certain subject is to use the library's research guides. We can find the research guides from the library's homepage by accessing the Research and Learn section, and under that, a Research Guides link. You can also access research guides with the button below the main search bar. Here you can see that our research guides are grouped by subject area. Many might be of use to you on your area of study. Today, we're going to click on the Finding Types of Information category, and then Data and Statistics. This will take us to the home page of the Data and Statistics Research Guide. This guide is curated by the Data Services team, past and present, and is based on topics that are commonly asked about. This Data and Statistics Guide contains many resources, from pages for different topic areas, like the environment to human rights, as well as by different geographic areas. This homepage also contains many quick links and descriptions to important data sources that are often quite general purpose and can be extremely useful for you. From the main page, we can also access more information about different types of data and how to cite data. Today we want to look at the topic guide dedicated to housing that can be easily found under topics A through M or from the drop-down menu. The housing topic guide is split into Canadian and foreign international. Since we're looking at affordable housing in Toronto, we'll focus on the Canada side. However, if we wanted to look into the international data that exists to compare the affordable housing in Toronto to other cities across the globe, we could also start looking at the foreign or international side. This section of the guide and today's exploration primarily focus on government data at all levels, because the government creates policies on housing and thus needs to have data to decide how to formulate these policies. Governments then make some of this data available to the general public, students, and researchers. We have Statistics Canada at the federal level that publishes tables, statistics, and analyses. They have recently started the Canadian Housing Survey in 2018, a survey conducted every 2 years dedicated to housing. In addition, the Census of Population has questions about housing. We'll shortly see even more products. In this exploration, we're focused on Toronto housing data specifically, and can see that the guide links to a few different City of Toronto sources on affordable housing. Then, there is also the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, a Crown corporation with the mission to make housing affordable. The CMHC collects data, analyzes it, and publishes its data along with research and reports. Statistics Canada publishes microdata, aggregated datasets, infographics, visualizations, and more. You can access the Statistics Canada Housing Portal directly through the Housing Topic page in our research guide, or you can also access it through the Statistics Canada website. At the top of the page, click on Subjects and select Housing. Here, we can find more than 100 related data products from 15 different survey or statistical programs. Let's click into the Housing Costs and Affordability subject area. Here, we find that there are 87 datasets and 27 analyses. The latter are reports or infographics. These analyses can be a helpful start for understanding what the government thinks is important from the data they're collecting. Let's take a closer look at an individual data set. With federal information, it's important to note the geography. We want data for Toronto, after all. Some datasets are only available at a larger level of geography, like province or territory, and this might not be as granular as we need. On Statistics Canada, the filtering is slightly hidden, but you just need to press the Add Remove Data button. Here, you'll see that we can narrow our selection to Toronto. Other helpful parts of the tables are the citation instructions and DOI to the data. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, which is persistent and standardized. There is also the Related Information section, which shows us the source of the data, related products, and subjects to help with an organic exploratory search. In this case, I can see that this data is from the Canadian Housing Survey, and I'm curious if I can find out more about this survey. Clicking on the Canadian Housing Survey, I am brought to detailed information on this specific survey. There is also a link to its questionnaire to know the exact questions on the survey. However, there's no microdata. How do we then access this microdata? We can try Odyssey to see if we can access these survey responses on an individual level. Odyssey is a digital repository for social science data, including polling data, with both microdata and aggregate data, as well as robust metadata. We can use the quick links in the Data and Statistics Research Guide to access Odyssey with our Passport York credentials. In Odyssey, we can click Browse to see all of the available information by category. We can then go to Social Surveys and Canada to find the Canadian Housing Survey. We can use Odyssey to understand variables and survey responses for a specific variable summarized. We can also use the tabulation tool to create cross-tabulations. Odyssey allows us to download the whole dataset of microdata in a desired data format like SPSS or CSV, but it also provides a wealth of metadata information and data documentation. It is also a powerful tool to allow us to create tabulations and analyses right in the tool, like selecting a variable and immediately seeing its frequency. The housing section of the Data and Statistics Guide also links to the Census of Population data on housing for the 2021, 2016, 2006, and 2001 censuses. Because the census goes to every Canadian household, it is filled with high-quality information on socioeconomic trends, with many aggregated statistics, reports, and analysis tools built upon it by Statistics Canada, academic and private sector researchers, and more. Thus, there is a huge wealth of information, and to highlight just a few of the tables based on census data, this screenshot on the right shows Statistics Canada products like a table on core housing need over time, a report on housing for Indigenous people in Canadian cities, and much more. The next resource from our Data and Statistics Research Guide is the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation data. The CMHC collects data on core housing needs, the rental market, housing markets, and more, all available in one place. Exploring this resource provides us with an understanding of what data variables and topics are collected on housing by the CMHC, as well as actual data. The CMHC also publishes several reports and research on housing in Canada. Also linked within the housing section of our Data and Statistics Research Guide are City of Toronto data resources, since York University is situated within the GTA. The City of Toronto considers affordable housing as a civic issue, with 52 datasets in its open data catalog. Again, it's important to know what is available to us here before deciding on a research question, since it can help you to then narrow down to a more specific topic. For example, maybe it is shelters you care about, or the amenities within apartment buildings. Finally, linked inside the research guide, but outside of the City of Toronto's open data portal, lie many reports and dashboards based on the open data, like this on the right about the shelter system flow. Going to all of the individual open data portals of Ontario cities can take a while. We can also try using research data repositories, which allow data deposits from all levels of government and researchers at many academic institutions to be searched for and discovered. The Federated Research Data Repository, or FRDR, is affiliated with many Canadian institutions, and particularly governments, but there are many more research data repositories as well. The FRDR is linked in the Quick Links section of the library's research guide. Once on the FRDR website, we can search affordable housing and see that we have thousands of results from organizations across Canada, including the City of Toronto and Ontario government datasets. At York University, we subscribe to data from the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, and you can access it again through the Quick Links section in the guide. ICPSR has a data archive of more than 250,000 files of research and data in social and behavioral science. The focus is predominantly on the United States, but it also contains data sets that cover Europe, Latin America, Africa, and Canada. And it's important to note that there are over 200 data sets just about Canada. Another general-purpose tool, and one that is comprehensive and multidisciplinary, is Statista. Again, you can access the full version through the Quick Links section in the guide. Statista consolidates data from across thousands of sources, as well as using that data to create reports. You can search for a topic like Housing Toronto, and then find and have that data visualized for you, and importantly, also view what the source of the information is. In our example, while we care about housing affordability in Ontario, we might also want to understand affordability at a larger and international level. After all, housing affordability is a global crisis, and many intergovernmental organizations and NGOs, from the OECD to the IMF, care about affordable housing. Both of these resources and more are listed in the Foreign International tab within our housing section of the guide.